Now for the invocation by Mr. Neville.
As I was getting ready for the meeting tonight, I had written out an invocation, but I also was watching the news. I'd missed it during the day that there was another shooting in Kentucky. 2 youngsters killed and 17 wounded. And then I just talking, there was one in Texas yesterday. And again, we had people wounded. I'm old enough to remember Columbine. I was an administrator. I remember how shocked we were when that first occurred. We're just totally stunned. And what bothers me now is that we're almost taking it as a matter of course that they just happen. And that's wrong. So knowing what the seriousness of this, I asked tonight that we pray for those youngsters, that we pray for the families of those, and just offer them whatever solace and consolation we can, and pray to God that this stuff will just stop happening. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. Okay, thank you, Mr. Neville. Fire evacuation. If there, in case there's a fire, you can exit out the rear doors, out to the parking lot, or out my left to your right, and to the left down the stairs and out the rear parking lot. Kathy, roll call, please.
Mr. Neville?
Present.
Mr. Ryder?
Present.
Mr. Renier?
Here.
Mrs. DePoe?
Present.
Mr. Rutledge? Mrs. Riley?
Here.
Mrs. LeBlanc? Mrs. Hernandez? Chairman Krusell?
Here. Tina had a previous engagement, and the other 2, I believe, are sick. So it's going around, so. All right, board guests, Mr. Drezek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have several guests this evening. First, I'd like to invite Dr. Marilyn Goodnight, who's our K-12 music coordinator for the district, who has some exciting news to share with the board. So I'd ask Dr. Goodnight to come to the microphone.
Welcome.
The music department is very pleased and proud that we have 6 Enfield High School students that participated in the Eastern Regional Music Festival a week ago last Saturday. And I'm just here to introduce Mark Rapucci, who took them to their auditions and went to the festival with them, and will be taking them to another audition this Saturday. So he's going to tell you about the program and the students. Do you want them to stand up here? Or? And I brought some extra copies of the program from the concert in case. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's already on.
Sorry. In case you'd like to take a look at the concert program.
Oh, sorry, please. I got to hit the button. Forget them.
So each of the students, thank you. It's such an honor to be here tonight to recognize these outstanding music students. Each of the students went through an intense music adjudication process where they all started with scale preparation, learning a solo and etude, and also sight reading material. And there were over 1,000 students that auditioned to get into Eastern Regionals. There were 20 students that went from Enfield High School, and we had 6 students score high enough to get in. It's almost like an all-star basketball or baseball team, except these guys went in individually to the room and received a score high enough to place, which is awesome. We have Maria Sestuli, who was in mixed chorus, and Andrew in orchestra, Nicholas Martin in band, Luke Barnes in band, Annabelle Daly also in band, and Ben Carrier in the band. Outstanding. Would you like to say a little bit something about the experience?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for having us. It's a tremendous honor to be here. Absolutely. Eastern Regionals was definitely an experience that not many students have. So we're definitely very grateful to have such a supportive music department and school system backing us and giving us such tremendous opportunities academically and definitely in music too. So thank you to the Board of Ed for supporting music. It's a tremendous part of my life, and as well as students behind me. As a student continuing with music as my career after high school, these experiences beyond the classroom and Enfield High are like none other, and very important to me, and I would say important to my education beyond high school. So thank you for that. So we went down to UConn on a Friday afternoon, and we had a rehearsal from 3 p.m. to around 8:30. So it was a long day, but definitely worth it. And then we got up early the next morning, went back down to UConn. We had another rehearsal, a dress rehearsal in the Jorgensen Center for Performing Arts at UConn. Absolutely beautiful hall, and it was an absolutely awesome time performing there. It's a gorgeous place. Sounded absolutely amazing. So we had those 2 days spent down there, and we had the concert 11 a.m., something like that, right?
It was at noon.
Noon? Okay, yeah. Concert at noon. The groups that performed were 2 choirs, the the symphony orchestra, band, and jazz band. All the groups were absolutely fantastic. Myself, I performed in the concert band, but it was awesome to hear all the other groups, and it was absolutely an awesome experience that I'll never forget. I'd definitely like to thank Mr. Pucci for being very supportive of each of us. Even the students who went and auditioned and weren't able to score high enough, all of our music teachers were very supportive of everybody during the audition, before, during, and after the audition process. So we're definitely all very grateful to have such tremendous teachers, Mr. Shonsky, Mr. Pucci, Mr. Sullivan, Dr. Goodnight, as well as Mr. Bouchard at JFK, music teacher. He's helped out me and Annabelle, giving us private lessons. So huge thank you to Board of Ed, the town of Enfield, and all those amazing teachers that helped us get there and have that amazing experience.
We want to wish them the best. That they're going to go through it again at the all-state auditions, which is even bigger and more students involved. And we wish you the best. And we want to also thank their parents. We know behind the scenes how supportive they are in coming out tonight. And thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions from the board? Ms. Wiley?
Yeah, I was just wondering, could you perhaps tell us what instruments you play? Or what part you sing?
I sing soprano.
Cool.
I play tuba.
So repeat it again
Yeah,
for the
start
microphone.
over.
I play tuba in the concert band.
I play or sing soprano.
I play all kinds of instruments in the percussion section.
Clarinet.
Baritone horn.
I play percussion also.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Mr. Neville?
I appreciate you coming up and thanking us, but we need to thank you. You represent us incredibly well. And this is like the gravy for us in doing this job, okay? This is the pay we get to listen to the good things that our students do on behalf of this town and on behalf of your school. So we offer you, all of us, our sincere thanks for representing us well and doing the hard work that I know goes into this. Mr. Rapucci, Dr. Goodnight, the same. You guys do a great job. We're proud of all of you.
Mr. Poe?
I'll just add to that, everything Tim said, and, I think it's one thing for you guys to stand there and maybe feel a little humbled because, you feel that you've achieved something and you're kind of standing with all of us staring at you, but I think really it's us who are humbled by your dedication and your talents and all of the hard work that you, your friends, your families, your instructors have put in, so just know that it's very much appreciated, and we're truly the humble ones, so thank you.
Anyone else? Well, congratulations. Just to let you know, I've been there, done it all state some 35 years ago. Not saying I'm going to sing at graduation. I'm just saying. I'm just saying I've been there, so I know it's a lot of hard work. So, but I'm not singing at graduation. I promise. Thank you again. You guys are. You're the best. Exactly. Spotlighting us. Mr. Drezek, 6B, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I go any further, that makes two of us.
Okay.
At this point, I'd like to welcome the Enfield Registrar of Voters, Mr. Louis Fiore and Mr. Mark Sheehan, to tonight's meeting. They're here to discuss the possibility of, they're here to discuss voting locations. We'll leave it at that.
Good
Welcome,
evening,
Mr. Fiore.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. And that's a tough act to follow. That's fantastic, too. I'm Lou Fiore. I'm the Democratic Registrar of Voters here in the town of Enfield. Unfortunately, Mark Sheehan, the Republican Registrar of Voters, has a family illness, so he couldn't be here tonight. But believe me, we've been working on this in consultation for a long time, as Superintendent knows and Andy knows also. Before I even start, I want to make you aware, I want to let you know that any election is not just done by the Registrar of Voters office. It takes a whole team of people throughout the whole town. I just want to pass on to you the support we have received from the superintendent's office, the principals at the 3 schools we use, and the staff. It has been tremendous through the years, and we just couldn't do it without them. So I'd want to make you aware of that, and thank you very much for all the help over the years, and I know that's going to continue. Over the last year or so, we have been contemplating a possible move of the Enfield Street voting location back over to Enfield High School. After successful meetings with Principal Clark, and I think actually when Principal Longy, when he was there, we've had a couple of tours, and with Gary Harrison, also the security consultant. And we've been hashing it out and gone back on our own and actually done a lot of detailed walkthroughs with the 75-foot radius, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, we have come to the conclusion, Mark and I, that we will not be moving over to Enfield High School. But before I continue on the reasons why, I just wanted to give you a little history of how this occurred. Many, many years ago, matter of fact, I noticed the fact because I co-authored the 1982 redistricting plan. At one time, we had 3 voting places in District 2, which is the district that Enfield Street School, Enfield High School is in. We voted at one time at Enfield Street School, at Elkhorn, and at Town Hall. And then around 2002 or so, that got scrunched up into 2 voting places, which was basically Enfield Street School and Town Hall. And then around 2012, that got scrunched down into 1 voting place, Enfield High School. And that's where it remained for about 2 years or so until the construction started, and then we had to move over to Enfield Street School. So I just wanted to give you a little history of what's transpired in that particular district as far as the voting places in the last 30, 40 years. One of the things that came to our detail as we were researching all this, and it really was originally our intent to move over to Enfield High School to change the voting location. But basically, after we reviewed it, there was a couple of reasons why we just felt we couldn't go forward with this. One was the fact that it was going to cost us some money right now to do that. And right now, I'm not sure if you know, and I'm sure you probably do know, all of our budgets in the town hall side are pretty much locked down. Can't even purchase supplies. So basically, it would cost us about $3,000 over the next 2 months to make that move. And that would be due to the fact that we'd have to buy extra signage, and also that every single registered voter in District 2, which is about 4,700 voters, would have to be notified by mail of the voting change at 47 cents a pop. So basically, let's get, okay, that's not really going to fly that well right now to do this, to try to, condone this expenditure for something that we just would like to do. The second problem we have at Enfield High School, unfortunately, is we were going to be using the gym in the back, not the front, not the cafeteria. And one reason why we contemplated a move, because we wanted to be able to have a central place where we could stay and vote when a regular election or a primary. So that's why the back of the gym looked advantageous for us. And it really is. It's a fine location, don't get me wrong, but there's a law for 75 feet, as I'm sure some of you are aware. You can't do any kind of activities within a 75-foot radius of the building. So when you measure out from the glass entrance doors of the back gym, the 75 feet line, if we went to this voting location, there would have been no candidate access. There would have been very limited access for any election paraphernalia. And in addition to that, it would have been difficult for us to police the cars that were going to park there, that they didn't have any election paraphernalia taped onto their windows. So, because we would lose like 10, 15 parking spaces with the 75-foot radius. So when you take that into consideration, it was, okay, how are we going to manage this? And the other thing that came up over the last 6 months or so is the fact that we really did hear a lot of negativity from the residents of this district who didn't really want to change again their voting location. They just felt it was going to be difficult for them. There's demographics for every voting district. And believe me, I know them inside and out. Between District 1, 2, 3, and 4, the demographics are all different. And District 2 has a unique demographic, and they just didn't want to change again after all those times I mentioned to you back over there. They were very content with Enfield Street School. Now, we have a problem with Enfield Street School when there's a primary and school's in session, because we do not want to disrupt school. So basically, we in Enfield Street School, we do vote in the back in the gym, and if any of you know that or not. And it does pose some problems. It is ADA accessible, okay. There is some parking, okay. But it is very difficult. But even having said that, we felt it was in the best interest this time to stay there. And basically, when you look at it too, when you look out over the next 3-4 years, there's only 2 times that we'd probably be using the back of Enfield Street School again. And that would be, for sure, on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020, for a presidential primary, because by law, there's presidential primaries. And in addition to that, on Tuesday, November 5th, 2019, for a possible municipal primary. Now, I have to be honest with you, in the last 20 years, maybe 24 years, we've only had 2 municipal primaries. So the chances of that happening are slim. It could happen, but we plan on it, but I would say that's probably not going to happen. Hopefully it doesn't. So when you look at it, really, the only next conflict we're going to have at the back of Enfield Street School is in the presidential primary in 2020. So that also, we took that into consideration. That's one of the reasons why, okay, why are we doing this? Why don't we just stay where we are? So with that, I wanted to bring that to your attention, because I know there's been a lot of talk, because originally Mark and I were really planning on moving until we started really thinking more about this over the Christmas time and in early January, and we come to this conclusion. So I want to get this out front so that we could stop any conversation and the principals know what's going on and staff, and so we can just go forward. And that's kind of like where we are today. And just answer any questions. I'm sure most of you know we do use 3-year buildings for all the elections: JFK, Henry Barnard, and Enfield Street School. And again, we couldn't hold elections without those buildings, to be quite frank with you. And I'll just entertain any questions or concerns you might have.
Any questions? My only point, because I was at all 4 this last election season, we do bring in a temporary light over at Henry Barnard, but I don't think we need it over there anymore. It was years ago. They didn't have lights in the building, but they do now. But I think that temporary light should be brought over to Enfield Street, where it was dark over at Enfield Street.
Oh, okay, okay.
Something to...
Sure.
To keep in the back of your mind.
Sure, absolutely. I'll make a note of that. The temporary light that was over by where everybody stands.
Where Henry Barnard,
Yep.
I don't think it's necessary there, because we have two lights, 2 new LED lights are on the building,
Okay.
so it's pretty lit up there. Where Enfield Street is pretty dark.
Okay,
So I know there was people complaining about the dark at Enfield Street.
Excuse me, Walter.
Sure,
No,
well,
go
I'll,
ahead.
yeah.
You said there's a new light at Henry Barnard from when we were there in November?
No, in November, there's the 2 on the back of the building that shine down in the parking lot. And then
Yeah,
they
it
had
was-
the temporary one by the dumpsters.
Yeah, that temporary one was definitely needed, though, after 6 o'clock. Or
Okay, so
5,
then
5.
possibly we'll look into another temporary.
I would say add one versus
Yeah,
move one.
sure, okay.
Just to be safe.
Sure,
'Cause
we can make that-
I'd hate for somebody to
Yeah,
fall
okay,
when they're
that
trying to
makes
do
sense.
their
All right,
duties.
just throwing it out there.
Sure, we make that request to
Go ahead,
Building
Mr.
Grounds. Yeah.
Just one other, too. I know we use Fermi, which is a big polling place.
Yep.
The lights did not come on. What I think is that it used to happen at JFK as well. It happens when the time changes, and they're on timers.
So the Fermi timers never got changed?
Never got changed.
Ah.
Okay, it took us over an hour to get there, and it was not a very, very good
I wasn't
situation.
at Fermi at night, so.
I'm surprised. That's the first I heard of that, but I'm definitely making a note.
Well,
Or I should say,
they need to check it out earlier than they did, I think.
I should
And
say the annex, not, let's call
Town
it.
Municipal Annex.
Yes, it's the annex.
However, but it needs light, and it needs to be checked out sooner than later. And I think what
yeah.
happens is, it happens pretty quick, but somebody needs to do a checklist that makes sure that is done.
The sidewalk next to the building was lit, but not getting there, not the circle.
Getting from the curb
park-
right
right, that
down
area,
there
right.
was totally black.
Black,
It was
I made a note of that, and we will work with
great.
Building Grounds on that.
You know, maybe a couple, 2 nights before the election,
Yeah,
we go
yeah.
out there at night and just
Yep.
check it out.
Yeah, we will do that. You mentioned the Fermi building very quickly, just to end it, is within our system for the letters that go out to all the voters and all our equipment, we have renamed it. So even on all of our election equipment. It's now Town Municipal Annex, and I've got a temporary reprieve to put Dash Fermi in all our paperwork so that the voters in town won't be confused, like, okay, what's the Town Municipal Annex? So we still kind of use the Fermi name just for about a year or two, and then we're going to be removing that also from all literature.
Got it. Good. Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me come
sir.
tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you, Superintendent.
Mr. Superintendent, 6C.
And our last guest for the evening, welcome members from Enfield's Kite. Chris Como, who's a kite coordinator, and a guest I'm not very familiar with, are here to discuss a program that's housed at the Stowe Early Learning Center. Those of you who don't know, I'm joking. Miss Leanne Bolio, who is retired but has never left.
Just tell him
who's
not
now
to put
the
his day
chair
down,
of
right?
Kite.
That's all.
So we welcome.
No, I know.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. We are very grateful that you have given us this time to speak with you this evening. We were here probably about a year ago, and we're here in part because we wanted to give you an update on the activities and the initiatives that we had shared with you at that point in time. And we also are here with an invitation, and most especially to express our gratitude. Over the past several weeks, Chris and I and the leadership work group have had some very rare opportunities to be parts of discussions that are happening on a regional basis in the state of Connecticut. And we have found over and over again that the kind of support that we get from the Board of Education and the Town Council, not just the monetary support, but the support in spirit and in purpose, I think, is very rare in this state and in this region. And so we are very grateful to all of you for that, and we wanted to be able to say that publicly. We especially would like to thank Walter Cruzel and Tim Neville for being our liaisons. Since in my time, Walter just turned over the liaison to Tim when he became chairperson, and we are grateful for your presence and your ideas. And Scott, we would like to thank you so much for saving us at our annual meeting and taking care of all of our technology for us. Thank you. And it is just one way for us to, or for the community to understand that the commitment that you make is not just a vague kind of commitment, but it is a commitment of action and heart too. So we are especially appreciative of that. The other thing that your support has allowed us to do, and that's part of what we'll be sharing with you this evening, is to leverage the impact that you have had on Kite and the support that you give to Kite into resources that have come into our community from foundations and organizations that want to support a community that comes together in the way that our community has done so. So we will share some of the progress that we have made with those kinds of initiatives tonight. First thing that we'd like to talk with you about, Chris, is the Enfield Plays On grant that we introduced to you last year.
Hello. Through the generous support of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, our Enfield Plays On initiative was able to provide many opportunities for families in the town of Enfield in the last year. We are in year one of a 3-year grant, and over this past year, we have been able to provide families in Enfield with over 20 fun-filled free events, which has been everything such as our bike bash to our winter snow event to our end of summer campfire event, which we partnered with the Enfield Fire Department. So it's been an opportunity for us to partner with our community partners and provide a really great, not only playful but learning experience for families. Another thing that we've been able to do with this money is to create what we call summer playcation kits. So over the summer, we passed out about 200 kits, and children and families were able to take the items in that kit and look to the Enfield Plays On Facebook page, and they would get some wonderful ideas for activities. And there was one per day, which over the summer I believe was 76 activities posted every day. So now Enfield Plays On has over 370 members on their Facebook page. So I invite you to check it out. It's really something. They were able to also do a winter playcation kit, which they passed out over this past winter vacation, and that was 10 days, ending with a New Year's Eve party at the Enfield Public Library, which was really a great celebration. Children and families were able to go and have a snack and have some do some crafts, and there was some dancing, and it was a real celebration. Again, showing our partnership with the Enfield Public Library. They are a great partner in our collaborative. Another great thing about the play, Enfield Plays On, and the play grant is part of this grant was to develop a play advisory board. So once again, we would like to thank Scott for being part of that play advisory board. And through these dollars, we are also able to train what we call play ambassadors, which are mainly made up of parents in the community. And they are able to take the skills that they learn and bring it out into the larger community. And it's really all about teaching learning through play. So it really has been a great initiative. I think the one thing that I need to mention quickly is we just had a really great event at the Stowe Early Learning Center this past Saturday. It was the Space event that was attended by over 300 families. So there was a pop-up planetarium that had a line waiting to get in all day long. That was a real big hit. It was also, there were many space-themed activities, crafts, and there was even an R2-D2, which was a really big hit. So we've heard a lot of great feedback. There has been so much talk about that event, and that was really a wonderful event put on through this, through Enfield Plays On. We are so grateful for all of the support that we get from the Board of Education, and that helps us to connect with our community partners and really provide something as fun as learning through play. So Leanne's going to talk a little bit about the equity piece.
Before I do that, I just want to remind everybody that the Enfield Plays On grant happened because we were providing executive function and purposeful play training to teachers in Enfield. And because that was so successful, the opportunity for us to apply for this, it was an invitation to apply, and it is taking everything that we've done in the schools and pushing it out also into the community so that everybody is on the same page with the same philosophy and the same care. So. The equity grant that we have is from the William Casper Graustein Memorial Fund, and that foundation, if you recall, is one of the foundations that supported KITE from the beginning. Over the past few years, they have moved their focus from early childhood education to equity, and invited those of us who had funding for early childhood to think about what could we do in our communities that would support young children but would have an equity focus. And we were awarded 2 grants from the Graustein Memorial Fund that we talked to you about this time last year. Over the past year, we've completed a community conversation that involved over 80 citizens from Enfield. There were police officers, the fire department, Board of Education members, public school teachers, community providers, medical personnel. There were people from all walks of life that participated in this conversation. And we really talked very openly about the concept of equity. We shared stories. We talked about the things that we dreamed about for Enfield, and then had an opportunity about a month later to invite 12 to 15 people from that initial training to a 2-day retreat. And their job was to go even deeper into the concept of equity and to develop a plan for the different stakeholders that they represented. I'm very thrilled to say that at the secondary level, there are initiatives in those schools that are really targeting conversations with children students and adults, looking at equity and tolerance and acceptance across all of the communities in Enfield. At the elementary level, we focused on families, and we used this initial grant that I talked to you about and a second grant that we received in order to target some of the communities in our town that needed to have some support in order to equally access some of the systems in Enfield. And with that, what we did is we worked with the University of Connecticut to look at the People Empowering People curriculum that has been used for years and years in our state, and we revised it to reflect the norms and traditions of the following populations: Latino, Arabic, Indian, Somalian, and African American communities. And parents in each of those communities came together, went through the People Empowering People curriculum together, and at the end did some projects for the community of Enfield. One of them was a game night. That was the Indian community, and we opened up Stowe School. The children and the families presented in different stations all different games that are typical in the Indian community, and people learned how to play them and were able to make some of the games themselves to take home. And then another was a group of parents coming together and thinking about and helping each other figure out, how do I help my child with homework, to study, and to be the best that they can be in school. And all of them have taken on a different flavor, but all of them have been very supportive of not just the schools, but the community as well as the specific populations. On January 31st, which is the snow date for last week, I think, we are bringing together representatives from each of the PEP classes, along with our Parent Leadership Academy graduates, to have a conversation around, where do we go from here? How do we leverage all of the talent and the skills that have been developed through those classes in order to help Enfield and to help our children and to help our families, especially along the lines of equity. The successes that we have had with these initiatives, as well as our other ongoing work, have been recognized by foundations and organizations within the state. It's been very exciting. Recently, we have been invited to participate in 2 regional initiatives that we just want to mention tonight. The first is the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. They are bringing together, they have invited 6 communities to come together to meet on a regular basis to support the concept of collaboration, to share resources, and to think about the kinds of initiatives that are common to all of us so that we can pool our intelligence, our creativity, and our energy so that we can do things in our state. And that will certainly benefit Enfield. The other is the Fund for Greater Hartford, and that organization, that foundation has invited 3 communities, Enfield is one of them, to partner with them on an ongoing basis, to establish a relationship, to really look at what we do in Enfield, and over time to support our goals and our dreams with, again, some advice, some expertise, some funding, and all of it is because of the work that they know that we have done and the successes that we have had. And Chris and I went last week on Thursday night, I think, to speak with the Board of Trustees for the fund, and they're very excited to get to know Enfield, and hopefully some of you as well. Part of what we are hoping is that we can continue to grow the relationship between the Board of Education and KITE. And towards that end, we hope that some of you will join us at a special event.
So I had handed out to everyone, and some of you may have seen it before, that it is a calendar, a 2018 calendar for KITE, but within that calendar is also a community report for the work that was done last year. And we did hand those out at our annual meeting, which is our celebration of the year's work. On the top of the calendar, you will note there is an invitation to attend a special KITE meeting, and we hope you will consider attending. For some of you might be more familiar with KITE than others, but it's just a great opportunity to have a conversation and to kind of figure out how we can work together and benefit the families and children here in Enfield. So it's just a great communication conversation starter. So it will be held February 7th at 5:30 p.m. at the Stowe Early Learning Center, and we're having a late dinner, and there will be great conversation. It's also an opportunity, I think, which is really important to remember. KITE is a collaborative. We are a collaborative effort made up of community partners, and some of them I mentioned briefly when I talked about play. The fire department, the Enfield Library, the pediatricians, the schools, as Nantucket Community College. We have some really incredible partners that kind of do all of the good work on the ground, and it's an opportunity for you all to see them and kind of hear a little bit about what their work looks like, and it's also an opportunity for us to hear from you all and see what you think is important in the work of families with young children. So it is February 7th at Stowe. We hope you're able to attend. Thank you.
The other thing that's in your packet that I forgot to talk about, sorry, is there's a separate sheet of paper at the beginning. It is the KITE Equity Belief Statement, and that is the last piece of the work that we did over this past year. One of the things that we realized is that we were doing equity work without really thinking about what it meant to us and how do we frame and shape the work that we do. So we have included that for you as well. We do hope that you'll be there. We know that the school district cannot do everything on its own, and hopefully the work that we've provided in terms of training for teachers, professional development for providers, the play lab at the Early Learning Center, we hope that the things that KITE has provided have been a support to you, to the students in our district and their families.
Sorry, Mr. Renier has a question.
I just want to say wholeheartedly thank you for everything that you guys do. Not only are you educating kids, you're educating parents, and you're educating the community. And that speaks volumes from all the programs you guys are putting on. I remember meeting you last year at one of the great events that they had at the Annex building. It was a phenomenal event. I was there with Tim as well. And, you know, what you guys are providing to this community, it's priceless. All the people you're bringing in and educating, and the space adventure over at Stowe, great event. I mean, you guys had things for toddlers with the sensory table. You had a whole bunch of different fine motor skills for the kids that they could put together constellations, and that big bubble, that was awesome. I just wanted to jump on top of it, but I mean, inside was pretty cool too. But no, I appreciate everything you guys do, and every time I see something that KITE's on it and KITE's over there, and you guys are everywhere, and you should be, because you guys are doing great things for our town. And we thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Neville?
Ditto on Rich's comments here. And I have a long history with you through my wife, so I
Yes, you
know
do.
the work that you do. I think it's wonderful that of the things that you've laid out to us tonight, and I think it's good to have us here, particularly new boards, okay, because unless you're involved, you don't always know what's going on. And I think also we like to have you on ETV because it educates the community about what's going on, which is a lot. You folks are tremendous at getting grants. I don't know how you do it. You must have that magic pen that.
There's not an opportunity that ever goes by that somebody's not grabbing at, right?
I've noticed that. I've noticed that. And it's great. And you're doing so much for the community. And I think the PEP programs and just phenomenal stuff that sometimes you find out by accident. I think we need to have you here at least annually. And I would go to the chair, to the superintendent, if you folks need to come here or you think it would be a good idea, come and ask us. We'd love to have you come here. But all I can do is echo Rich's comments and say, you make us proud for the work that you do, and please keep it up. Even if you're in retirement, Leanne, it's fine. We'd love to have you here anyway. Okay?
Ms. Riley?
Yeah. I think you guys are doing an awesome job. And on everything that they said, but on a personal note, thank you for the summer placation kits. They totally, completely saved me this summer. Totally, it was great. And I was, and then the Find Polly and I think it's Pablo.
Yep,
And stuff.
yep.
Those are great. My kids love those things. I'm kind of bummed out that my kids were sick and I was sick and we didn't get to see R2-D2 or the planetarium. I heard it was awesome though. So definitely keep up the great work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Ryder?
I just wanted to say thank you again to Kite and some of my neighbors that are part of Kite, Amy Whitbrow as well as Chris Gomo, and also Lisa Rogers, who runs the PLA class. And shortly after my daughter started kindergarten here in Enfield, which was shortly after we had moved to Enfield, my first introduction to Kite was through the Parent Leadership Academy. So I was a member of that in class 9, and that was something that I didn't take necessarily for the public speaking aspect or for the coming out of your shell aspect, but I took it as a way to meet people in Enfield because we were new to the area. We were transplants, and through PLA, now I'm sitting here, as well as being involved with several different schools and PTOs. So I'm a big fan of Kite, and I just wanted to mention to everybody watching at home, just to reiterate, so the Kite Facebook page is Kite, capital KITE Key Initiatives to Early Education, as well as you should also like the Enfield Plays On ! Facebook page, and that's how you find out about things like the Adventures in Space, which was amazing on Saturday. We were there, and that's also how you can find out about the Playcation kits, and anything I can do to promote Enfield Plays On and the Kite. You know that I'm available to help. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd love to say something new and fresh, but I can't. They covered it. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. And we'd like to thank all of you again, and also Chris Drezick and Andy Longi for their support as well. Chris is actually going to be speaking on February 7th. I believe Amy Whitbrow twisted his arm. It's hard. That's how we're so successful. It's hard to say no to any of us, I think, but...
They're pretty persuasive.
Well, I'd like to say thank you. I've been attending your meetings, now for the last 2.5 years anyway. And when I first got there, I was like, what is this? And you guys opened my eyes to this, and it's great what you guys do for this town and for the community. And keep it up and grab any grants you can get your hands on and bring them in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to number 7, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Drezick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're down one student representative this evening due to illness, so
Matt, go ahead.
We have
You
Matt
the floor.
tonight.
The 2 concerts hosted at Enfield High School over the past 2 weeks were well attended, well liked, very successful. The musicians sounded great. Tomorrow there is Thursday, there is a junior parent and student planning night at Enfield High School. And on Friday there are boys basketball games. On Tuesday there is the girls basketball senior night. Kind of a little bit in the future is on February 8th there is a Tri-M Music Honor Society recital where the members will be performing solos on their instruments or vocals or whatever they choose to do. And the big one, on Thursday at Enfield High, midterms are starting, and they're continuing until Tuesday, so there's a lot of anticipation there. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Drezek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you just heard, Chris and Leanne mentioned then the special kite meeting on Wednesday, February 7th. In addition to that, Kite is also holding an information night for parents and preschool educators on Thursday, February 8th at 6:30 p.m. in the JFK Auditorium for their kindergarten transition night. There's also the list of the January and February events are listed in your packet, and there's one bit of information that's not in your packet that I was just given that I can share with you this evening. Some of you may remember, if you were on the board previously, that currently at Enfield High School, the sign at the entrance is missing something, and it's missing a logo of the school. The Raider was removed, and we had last spring indicated to the board that we were going to charge the Woods 3 students and build it into the curriculum for this school year, and they were actually going to design through the tilling machine, and I can't change a light bulb in my own house, so I don't want to mispronounce anything. But the students at the direction of Mr. Daig and Mr. Grigley not only took the challenge, they embedded it in the curriculum, and they are actually creating the design. They're creating a mock for us to look at, which I'm going to unveil right now. It is a draft, I'm told, but this was all designed, milled, I believe is the correct word, and if you could look at the level of detail on this, you can clearly understand why I can't represent it properly. But this is a draft, and the reason that I'm showing this to you at this point this evening, there were several designs that the kids all created on their own, anything from a circle with the high school logo in the middle of it to different 3D functions. This was ultimately the one that was settled on because of the size and how they would have to mount it onto the existing sign. The next step in the process, because Enfield High is in the Historical Society, is they actually have to go and present to the Historical Society to get approval to then mount it onto the sign. So before they went any further, they wanted to present it to me and say, are you okay with us going forward? Because the next step is to actually create what will ultimately be the new logo on the sign. They have the materials. They're actually going to incorporate the art department for some specialized painting for sign materials. So they're going to work in conjunction with the art department as well as with the technology department. So Mr. Grigley and the Woods 3 kids did a fantastic job coming up with what they're calling the last model. And assuming, I don't need a vote, but assuming no one has any objections to it, I'm going to tell Mr. Daig tomorrow, get rolling on the actual product, and at that point, once it's done, they're going to have to bring it to the Historical Society for approval, with hope that there aren't any objections from the Historical Society, and then it'll be ready to be mounted on the sign. So I will pass this along so you can see it. I'm taking it back. But the final product will be painted appropriately with school colors, and the amount of detail, they're actually, as I found out later on, the finished product will actually have more detail on it than what you're actually seeing today, which still somewhat amazes me. But the drafting, the computer-guided milling and machining was all designed and implemented by the kids.
Do you know how big it's going to be when it's...
That's going to be the size.
Oh, that's going to be the size, okay.
That's why we had to set up, they had multiple designs that they proposed to Mr. Grigley and to Mr. Daig, but ultimately settled on that design because of the size. And it has to be wood in order to stay consistent with the Historical Society, from my understanding, and that would be the easiest to adhere to the sign.
Should be a no-brainer, so note to Historical Society, it's a no-brainer, just make it so.
And that will conclude the...
Sooner than later.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Drezek. So we move on to audiences. Just want to remind you, we have a 3-minute per person and no personalities. So the first one on here is Ala Mayo. Kale. I'm sorry. Please come up and restate your name for the record and your address.
Ala Hale, 5 Sherman Road.
Have a seat there at the table.
This table?
And at that table.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm Ala Hale. I live at 5 Sherman Road in Enfield.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving me the 3 minutes tonight. I'm here because my son, Samuel Ortiz, he attends the Crack Magnet School, but he's an Enfield student, and he is a special needs student, and he is currently on the IEP. After his triennial review by Enfield District and Enfield psychologist, the Enfield psychologist has determined that Samuel no longer qualifies to be on the IEP, and it was suggested to exit him from special services, which Samuel was present at the PPT, and so was I, and Samuel was very well advocating for himself. He has autism and ADHD, and medical diagnosis. So we were denied an independent evaluation, and because of that, Enfield has requested a due process. The hearing is scheduled for February 5th. I have requested another neuropsychologist to review the evaluations 3 years prior and the one that was performed this year. And she has a letter that she wrote, a formal letter of her review. She is a neuropsychologist. Her name is Dr. Laura Cease, who has reviewed both evaluations and found 10 concerns, significant concerns regarding the evaluation. And therefore, I am here today to ask you, I have requested to dismiss, I have requested to dismiss my request for independent evaluation, yet Enfield still continuing with the hearing, which means that they're spending the taxpayers' money, Enfield, whoever lives here, for the attorney that is continuing this process even though I withdrew my request. So the hearing will still go on even though I withdrew my request. So therefore I came up with this letter so in hopes that this will be dismissed. Samuel, instead of paying the attorney, it would be a lot less money to pay for the independent evaluation. Either way, this money is being spent by Enfield, but instead the attorney is getting it, which is really, I don't know why a parent and her child would be dragged through a process like that. So I ask you today to take a look at her letter when you get a chance, and basically in hopes that this process will stop. I only have 6 copies.
Well, I was going to say, if you want to just pass it on to the secretary there, and thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Kelly Jackson.
Hi, I'm Kelly Jackson. I live at 30 Mead Lane in Enfield. I'm here tonight because events that transpired last week with my daughter. She attends JFK Middle School. She's in the 8th grade. She had an issue with a student all week long. She sought help from teachers and administration, and I talked to administration, and in the end, there ended up being a fight at the end of the week, which my daughter got 8 days of suspension and charged with breach of peace because she, quote unquote, engaged in the fight. She made it clear all week she did not want to fight this girl. She had a lot of anxiety through the week. I was in contact with Ms. Horan. We had text messages back and forth, who told me that Officer Becky was aware, all administration was aware. My daughter was put on hall restriction, and I'm here because I want to bring up a few things that I think need to change as far as for the students. My daughter was put on hall restriction for her safety, which means the girl that was going after her and trying to fight her was able to roam the halls and be with her friends, where my daughter had to sit in a classroom like she was on punishment and not be able to, be with her friends and, go about her business. I think in that aspect, that's wrong. She should not have been the one being held back and waiting for the halls to clear. I think it should have been the other girl. And then when this fight transpired, she was brought in with Officer Becky, who knew about the fight, and she asked my daughter questions that I felt were like racially biased. Things like, did you wear your hair in braids today to let this girl know that you wanted to fight? I've talked to police officers. I went to the police department last night to make a complaint. He claims to me that he doesn't feel there's anything wrong with that because in gang situations, they will wear different colors to let other people know they want to fight. To me, I think that's ridiculous. I've spoke to Mr. Longy about the situation. Unfortunately, he can't really do much about the suspension, and I feel like when my daughter goes back to school, because this girl has said she wants round 2, that I feel like what is going to make her safe? She went to this girl came after her on Tuesday. Administration got involved, intervened. They had to actually pull this girl away. She was making a huge scene. According to Mr. Sargoleski, the head principal, he was trying to find a way to suspend her, but he didn't have anything. So when she went after her on Tuesday, that wasn't grounds to do something. And when she went after her on Thursday in the cafeteria, that wasn't grounds to do anything. And also on Thursday, she was on hall restriction, but yet and still in the cafeteria, something transpired. I asked about the zero tolerance for bullying. I was told that I was supposed to come in and fill out paperwork. Officer Becky had said to me, have you ever read the school handbook? I said, well, I've kind of run through it, but, you know, I haven't really looked at it. And she said, well, you have to come in and fill out paperwork. So I asked Ms. Haran why I was never told during these text messages or whatever to come in and you can further the process. And she said to me, well, I didn't really tell you because, you know, this other girl claimed that your daughter was talking stuff to her, so this is why she was going after her. But my daughter made it clear many times that she did not want to fight her, and she took the right routes to say, I don't want to do this. So I feel like my daughter going back to school, how do I know that she's going to be safe? How do I know that, you know, she goes back to school, they talk to this girl, and they say to her, okay, you can't do anything or else you'll be expelled or whatever, but this girl doesn't up the antes, like bring a knife or, you know, whatever the case may be. And I just don't know where to go. I've gone through all the steps I'm supposed to do. I've talked to the police. I filed a report last night because this girl has made a second threat. I filed a report last night. I talked to, you know, Mr. Longy. I just feel like my hands are tied, and I'm scared to send my daughter back to school because I don't know if she's really going to be safe, considering the whole week.
I gave you a few minutes over the 3
Thank you, I
minutes.
appreciate it.
So if we can't start it back and forth here, so that's not.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
So if you have anything else,
Nope, that's it.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other audiences? Any other audiences? Declared audience is closed. Number 9, board member comments. You want to start with Mr. Neville, or how do we want to do this, sir?
Any way you like.
You know, go ahead if you want to start.
Really just a couple of things. One, the kite folks coming up here, again, it's, you know, they do such a wonderful job for us, for the community, not just for us, but they certainly represent us well. I think it's important to continue to support them. So I thank them once again for coming up. And our music people, our sports, all of our people who come up and represent our system well. It's just, I mean, that's the highlight of our tenure here, okay, is see the good things that happen here, and there are many. And I look forward, I know Ms. Dresik is going to be bringing different groups before us over the next couple of months, and I look forward to showcasing that and letting the public know what goes on. Because if you're not in the schools, you really don't know it, and I think we need to kind of showcase that. I'm assuming, through the chair to Mr. Dresik, that you folks, we've had 2 concerns that were brought up here by parents. It's not our role to get involved in that. I'm assuming you folks are aware and are in touch with the people who are doing this. So I'll leave it in your capable hands to address it. Other than that, nothing to say.
Thank you, Mr. Neville. Mr. Ryder?
Good evening. Prior to heading over to the Board of Ed meeting this evening, I stopped over at the JFK PTO meeting. I just want to let all the JFK families, students, and parents know that the hats are in. There's a Spiritwear fundraiser going on. You can order those items online. They have rescheduled the 7th grade dance. It is now February 9th for all the 7th graders at JFK. The 6th grade dance is TBD, but that'll be in March. And the only other question I wanted to ask, if I may ask Mr. Dresik through the chair, I noticed the preparation for kindergarten transition event. I had asked last year, I was just wondering if we could do this again, where we get the 3 PTOs at the K2 level, just to do one combined flyer with our contact information, our email addresses, Facebook pages, because sometimes a new parent to kindergarten might have a question for another parent versus a question, for a teacher specifically. And if they knew where they were going, like I already know when I start school in September, my kindergarten is going to be at Hazardville, and maybe they might want to reach out to the PTO and just say, hey, what do we need supplies wise, et cetera, just things like that.
Yeah, we've done that in the past.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Mr. Renier?
Thank you. First, I'd just like to say Hazardville Memorial, February 10th, is having a special persons dance. So if you are in the Hazardville Memorial family, take note of that, the 10th. Also, I'd like to give a big shout out to all the teachers and nurses this past flu week and month. The things they are dealing with cannot be understated. So to all the teachers and nurses out there, you're doing a fabulous job. We only have about a couple months left, so we're good. That's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Renier. Mr. Poe, anything?
Not too much here. Our next Enfield Street School PTO meeting is right before our next board meeting, so I should have more updates for you then. And again, just want to thank everyone for sharing the things that they do share, the positive accomplishments, some of the negative experiences. We learn and appreciate from all of those. We may not always be able to have a conversation right here on this dais, but we are always listening. So I kind of want everyone to know that and reiterate that we appreciate all the feedback that we receive.
Thank you, Mr. Poe. Ms. Riley?
I wanted to say good luck to all of the Enfield High students on their midterms. I would encourage all new parents to go to the kindergarten transition night. There's a lot of good information there. I went when my son went into kindergarten. There's a lot of good information. Flu season, wash your hands as best as you can for as long as you can with a lot of soap and water. And that was about it. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. I just want to add, Prudence Crandall, I know there was 2 concerts, and I was under the weather for both of them. I would have loved to attend, but I just didn't want to bring my sickness to you guys, so. And then I'm assuming the people that spoke that were handling it through central office. So whatever we could do to in those situations, that would be greatly appreciated. And that's all I have. So, Ms. Riley, one more?
I was taking notes down, but this is through the chairman to the superintendent. Did she give you the letter that she was talking about, or Kathy has it? Okay. I just want to make sure.
Okay. So anything else? So we'll move on to unfinished business. A, BOE Policy 6111, School Calendar, second reading.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Last week we had last meeting we had the first reading of the Board Policy 6111 that we were using to update language to 1 school instead of 2 high schools. This would be the second reading on that.
So do I have a motion to go for a second reading?
Yes.
So moved by Mr. Ryder, seconded by Ms. Riley. Any discussion?
This is the second and final.
This is second and final reading.
So a vote on this will accept it.
Correct. This vote would be accepted, and then they can work on your calendars.
Just a few changes to get to one high school.
Just clarify that part.
So Kathy, roll call, please.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. DePoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes.
Chairman Kruzel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So that's unfinished business. New business, we have a new policy, policy number 9327.1, board members' use of internet social networking, first reading.
Yes,
Mr. Renier.
Mr. Chair, this policy had come up in a couple prior meetings. This year, actually, as of last, this would be added to our 9,000 series. This policy, which was made available to all the board members and to the public on the public schools website, basically outlining board members' use of social media as it acts in regards to compliance with the school district and within ourselves. So this would be the first reading of policy 9327.1.
We did get a copy of this?
I don't see it.
Yes.
You did get a copy in the electronic.
It's not in the packet, but, yeah.
It was emailed to the whole board.
It's in there.
We did get it in an email, I believe.
It's
but-
in the packet, the
Well, hold on,
online
wait a minute, wait a
packet.
minute. No, it is here. It is here. It's under, it's down under 11A.
Scare me.
It's page 12 in the packet. It's here.
It's stamped first reading on it, 9327.1.
It goes from page 12 to page 15. Yep. No, I must have too, so I just found it first. Yeah, that first one was the second reading. Page 12. Says 11A on the top.
I apologize.
No, I missed it too, so. So do we want to, a motion to accept the first reading?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a suggestion, if possible, if we could possibly table this to next meeting, just for the fact that we are missing a couple of board members, and as it is a board member policy, I'd like for all 9 of us to be here.
Yeah,
Fine. I
yeah, why don't we do
apologize
that?
I
No,
just
oh,
missed it. No, I think it's a
good
good idea.
idea.
Yeah.
If we're going to deal with this.
yeah, let's, all right.
I think there should be some questions about it. We want to make it an entire board, as close to an entire board as we can.
So do I have a-
Take that off, right. I'd make the motion to table it till the next meeting.
So motion by Mr. Neville to table to next meeting. Seconded by Mr. Renier. Any discussion on tabling?
No.
Do we need a roll call? Roll call, please.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. DePoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes.
Chairman Krizel?
Yes.
Motion to table
So
passes.
that'll be moved up to item 10, unfinished business, and just put it in our packet again next week, next meeting, please. Okay, so we're at 11B, action, if any, regarding approving the board priorities, which I believe are in here also. I thought I saw, maybe they're back up here. Yeah, they are. Okay. So do you want me to read these, or
Just say, for ease, what page is that? What page?
it's on page 6? It's way up top. Do I need to read these in the record, or?
No, I don't think, I don't think you do it. I don't, because if we all have it in front of us, that's fine. I have a couple of questions. I think what we have is great. I have some questions, and I think it came up at our meeting, and please refresh my memory. I think.
Hold on, we could discuss before we make it up?
Should we make a motion to?
Make a motion to approve or discuss it first?
I make a motion that we accept the.
So, motion made by Mr. Neville, seconded by Ms. Riley. Now you may discuss,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Neville.
I think it was we were at the CABE meeting, which a lot of us were attending, and I know we got this stuff from CABE. I think we all got it at our home and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that they had talked about was that they have come up with some priorities, and I think that if different school boards accepted theirs and endorsed theirs, it would help them with the kind of the mass of people joining in that to kind of keep them in the forefront and keep them, I think, when they're doing lobbying and stuff like that. Because some of these, and I checked off some of them, certainly I didn't hit all of them, certainly with things that we would believe in. Whether we want to make it a priority or not, I don't know. I don't know if you have these books with you, but I could, yeah, I think you all got them at one time.
if I can just go through a couple of them, okay. CABE urges all districts to affirm that all children can learn and accept the challenge to educate each child to his or her fullest potential. We have something to that. We discussed something to that extent, I think, at the retreat, but having something out there, that should be our priority anyway, okay? Even if it's unspoken priority, that should be our priority. Another one they had is talking about civility, okay, which is certainly appropriate in some of the things that have been going on in this country. So that's another one. There was one here that had to do the funding ones are the ones that intrigue me, and I think that you guys will agree with me whether it should be a priority or not. It should be at the forefront. It says, for student success, CABE urges the legislature to provide the funding and flexibility necessary for local and regional school systems to address the needs of the students, such as with appropriate increases in funding for dropout prevention and student retention. If you recall, I think Chris has gone through this, that most of that has shifted to the town. And and it's the state that's requiring it. It probably comes under unfunded mandates, but literally making us provide the funding to deal with youngsters who have been retained and/or suspended, and full funding here. There's something wrong with that in my mind. Okay, there needs to be a discussion about it anyway, and I think it should come up with the legislator. And there's also the one, Mr. Dresdick, correct me if I'm wrong, about student expulsion, okay? That if I read it correctly, would be literally, we would be setting up, if we expel a student for whatever the cause is, okay? And I'm not interested in throwing kids away or taking them out of school, but in terms of either violence or issues with disrupting the entire the environment or safety issues or stuff like that, well, I know we currently offer programs for kids, but my understanding is that their request is for much more extensive programs that would probably be full-day programs, 5 days a week and so on, and not just dealing with the academic courses that they have. I think they'd also be looking at us to deal with the behavior that they might be expelled for. And I'm wondering, my opinion, I think some of this stuff is asking us to go beyond what our charge is and also what our skill set is. It's not part of our charge to do it, but I'm watching a shifting of cost. I don't mind discussing it, but what I've seen is there's a problem there. They're changing the problem, and the cost is just shifting towards us. Somehow that has to be dealt with in terms of providing a further discussion with the people who now would be footing the bill as to how we would do that and where would the funds come from. If it's becoming a state mandate, God bless, but I think that they're mandating it, then they should be funding it as well. Yeah. Because, anyway, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. There's some other ones that go in with providing the full amount of money that goes towards educating special ed youngsters. We get 70. We can't predict what we're going to get in a bad budget year, and I think a final one here, which intrigues me, is requirements that you guys continually get about collecting data. Okay, we collect data sometimes that's redundant. We collect it in different other kinds of forms and stuff like that. And the CABE is urging the state and federal governments to reduce the number and complexity of regulations directed at education, including the paperwork burden associated with implementing education laws. Okay, what data is actually needed? How is it used? And who's collecting it? And how do we deal with it? And are we doing it in 2 or 3 places? If I'm misspeaking, just tell me. But that's how I'm reading it.
No, if I can interject for a moment, I might be able to help. There is an avenue that CABE puts together their legislative priorities on an annual basis, as well as and they do in conjunction with CAPS, which is the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, and they will typically put out either it's whether it's called a white paper or it's just a list of priorities. I've had discussions either through CABE representatives or colleagues throughout the state. I'm actually on the legislative committee for CAPS, and one of the things that we were discussing is putting out a position paper, as Mr. Neville's reading, that consolidates the priorities of CABE and CAPS, which would do it in conjunction, and asking boards of ed to either sign on or take an official capacity vote. So it would be separate from what your local priorities are, which is what's in front of you now, but it would give you an opportunity to formalize your support for what CABE's priorities are, particularly when it comes to legislative issues. So I don't know if it necessarily needs to be mirrored into what you're doing this evening, but if you're interested, there is an opportunity to do that. I have a meeting next week to get some more clarification on what we would present back to our local boards as far as getting the boards to formally endorse the priorities as you're discussing in there.
I'm fine with that. I prefaced it by saying I'm not sure they need to be part of these, but I think there are things that are more than of interest to us. They address things that we have to account for, and I think if we can work on those priorities and get it to be practical and reasonable and support the CABE in that way as a district, I'd be interested in doing that.
So you could bring that to a future meeting, and we could vote on that in a future
Relatively shortly, because the legislative process is starting to gear up. So they're just finalizing. There was a meeting last week, unfortunately, with the weather. I couldn't get down there. But I did get some information today, and I know I have another one next week, with the hope that all local boards will have an opportunity to formally endorse the same priorities that Mr. Neville was discussing. So I certainly can get it on the future agenda.
Why don't he, after his meeting, we bring it up at our next leadership?
That's fine.
Discuss it, and then we can bring it in front of the whole board and vote on it.
I wasn't intending to force it on anybody.
Oh, no.
I'm looking at this stuff and saying, we can't handle much more of this stuff. In terms, you know the cutbacks we're dealing with now. I mean, this automatically becomes a priority, which means that the priorities that we're setting will not be a priority because you're mandated to fund it. And that's what's bothering me. And I think it's already in effect, correct? This is already in effect.
Yeah,
I don't think was much discussion about this before it went into effect.
Some of them are.
Fiscal year, did it?
One of them, the one you referenced with regards to expulsions, was delayed a year, but it is due to come in effect August 1st of this year. And you are correct. Mr. Neville's correct. And essentially, programs for expelled students will have to mirror what their regular program is now. Right now, the current law is you provide 2 hours of services a day, for a week. That has now jumped up to 5 a day or 25 a week, and the services have to mirror what the program that the child's in now. And we can certainly take up a good portion of a future board meeting discussing a lot of these mandates that are coming down the board if you wish to do so.
I wish they'd just go away. To be honest, I don't really want to talk about it, but I think we also should bring up these mandates. And I know at one time we had a list of the ones that we were concerned about, but also were impacting our budget, and that we had no control over. We're going to be having our state representatives coming in here again, and I'd like to have a document from us that we could give them. Give it to them beforehand. I think we already have it, and just add the new ones on.
It's being updated as we speak by Tom Mooney.
Geez, you must have read my mind.
Fran Rabinowitz is sending it out to all of CAPS as soon as Mr. Mooney proofs it.
Sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate your patience.
So anything else on the priorities we have set here? Now, we were discussing the form letter also, so I don't know if we want to discuss that now. A form letter to go out after public audiences, and if Mr. Dresden could read it.
Sure.
Aloud at this point.
This is just a sample letter that I've seen in other districts. I know other districts can personalize them to how they see fit. But essentially, anyone who would address the board in public session would get a follow-up. It says, "Dear so-and-so, sir, ma'am, thank you for taking the time to attend the Board of Education meeting on blank date. The board always appreciates when parents or members of the community take time to share their feelings with the Board of Education. We appreciate your comments regarding whatever the said subject matter of the day was. And then again, thank you again for speaking to the board and for your support of education in the Enfield community. Sincerely," and it will be signed by the chairman.
So we can add that to the priorities too. And then there was also the discussion about reaching out to ETV, correct?
Yes, the email.
So there was a discussion about reaching out to ETV that when ETV shows our name, if we could add our email addresses to that.
Didn't you look into that? And they said they could.
They said they could. We just wanted to get a consensus from the board if everyone's okay with that we could approve that with our priorities, and they just wanted to know that we would give them some kind of set order of when we do our board member comments, so they can have them in the roll. So
You can't do what you were doing this year. which is
Yeah,
very-
yeah. So I'll have
Stole your
to,
thunder,
so
Walter.
I'll have to come up with an order and just give it to them ahead of time so they can have time to put that up during our board member comments.
Do we have to do that as a matter of accepting the priorities, or can you just do that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Part of
a
procedure.
consensus from the board should be fine with that, correct?
Correct. There's no formal vote for that.
Because otherwise you have to change this and add to it.
No, yeah,
Same
no,
with-
we
same
were
with the
just
letter.
go-
I don't
we-
think you need to put that in there either.
No, that's just a consensus also, so we were just gonna discuss it during this time,
That's
that's all.
fine, that's fine.
So the motion was to accept the 4 policies that we have written, and any other discussion on the original motion. Ms. Riley?
I just had one question. So these will end up going on our website, on the Enfield Public School website, and where it says support the goals set by the Enfield Public Schools, are the goals set by the public schools, is that going to be on the website too, the ones that you showed us?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's
They were
I didn't
being
know.
updated, so they were taken down, and as they've now been finalized, they're being put back
Wonderful.
up.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Rainier?
Actually, just to add to that as well, what we haven't done in the past, we've usually done it in-house, but this year, our administrative council is going to put together a presentation of the district's goals for the board to see at the conclusion of this year, when we actually have some accomplishments as well as some data to share with you.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
You're all set, Mr. Rainier? So any other discussion on the motion? Kathy, do we need a roll call?
Yes, you do.
Please.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. DePoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes.
Chairman Krizel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so now we're moving on to 11C, action, if any, regarding the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. Mr. Dresnick, any comments or?
I think I did enough talking last meeting,
Okay.
so I'm done.
So we did get the budget from the superintendent. We had 2 weeks to mull it over. I did give, I don't know, did you pass out the spreadsheet to everybody? I do have some extra. I made a spreadsheet of all the totals if you guys want one, so you can see it in a different way. It's up to you. So do I have a motion to accept the budget as presented by the superintendent?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Neville, seconded by Ms. Riley. Any discussion?
Just, I've spoken to Tina about it, she's in favor of it, but I know she's right now.
Yeah,
out.
and
So just.
we have a quorum
She asked me just to pass that
Okay.
on.
And I think we do have Mr. Rutledge's blessing on it also. So Kathy, roll call, please.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Renier?
Yes.
Mrs. DePoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes.
Chairman Krizel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you again, Mr. Dresnick, for a wonderful presentation, and now it's off to the town council to, then we'll leave it at that. So now we're at number 12, Board Committee Reports, Curriculum Committee, Mr. Neville.
We met on January 11th, I guess it was, right? Yes. And per Mr. Dresnick's budget and his discussion there, he mentioned that we were running out of electives at the high school, and so the first 3 things on our agenda were those electives. Okay? AP U.S. Government and Politics and AP Comparative Government and Politics, and then I believe we did the video production high school elective course, which sounds fascinating. I think the discussion we had was fantastic. And it's not costing us much money. You guys just planned totally ahead. I was just so pleased. I think I also, we asked anyway, you get your packet in the mail. I think Kathy's already sent it out. We asked for a copy, an updated copy of the AP classes that we're offering. It's just astounding what we are offering now compared to what we were offering even 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know how we compare with other districts, but we have to compare pretty well, I would think, with the number of courses that we're offering here. So I don't think these are even, I think we're using current teachers, so there's really no cost involved, is my understanding, or we're moving people around, stuff like that, so I think they're really, really wonderful. A really neat discussion that we had was with the Asnuntic Pathways Expansion thing, ACC Pathways Expansion, and the talk of doing the emergency medical technician certification, which I thought was neat. I know other schools like Ellington have done that, and in fact, they run their ambulance, I think, out of that. But I thought, what a neat opportunity for kids to get, and we all brought it up that, when you're going to graduate school or you're going to college, they're looking to see what other things you bring to the table, and particularly if people are going to the medical field. That is certainly that's certainly a plus to them. The digital video production, the stuff that you're going to do with that, I think they'll be lining up at the doors for that particular course. Dr. Wiley brought up the math electives and proposed the adoption of math applications, which is a 0.5 credit course open to students in grade 10, 11, and 12. So again, it adds into that elective group. And there's another one which was my personal favorite. I wish they had offered it to my sons. She proposed offering a personal finance class, which I think should be a prerequisite for all students graduating from high school as a crossover credit. And I just think it was really, really neat the way she presented it. And I think it also opened up to a lot more kids than there aren't prerequisites for it, I don't believe. Okay, and so it doesn't exclude anybody, and I think it adds another course of which I think that it would be very, very popular. Just ask the parents; they'll sign off on it. I think it's a great idea. Music electives, we always have a number of music electives, and what we saw tonight tells us how much the kids take advantage of those. They changed just the title change from the honors treble course to honors course. It basically just eliminates. It's more inclusive in terms of men and women rather than just. I forget. It must have been. It must have been the female students that took it before. They added two new theater courses: drama and musical theater. Each course is a 0.5 credit. It would be open to all students, grade 9 to 12, and would again expand the choice of electives that students have at Enfield High School. And finally, I mentioned that we gave you the chart. I'd encourage you to look at it. If you have any questions, bring it back to us. We asked the question, though, of how many, what was the percentage of students who are taking advantage of the AP courses? And I know it's kind of hard to get because some kids take 2 or 3, some kids take 1, and so, but she stated that the data reflects that 14% of students at Enfield High School took at least one AP course in the 2016-17 school year. Took at least 1. I know the kids we had last year were signed up for 3 courses. I don't know how many of you signed up for it.
I'm in 2 now, but I'm
yeah. All right, so we're really. I'd love to see those numbers as we get up there to see just, not just at least 1, but the number of kids who are really taking advantage of it, and walking into college with if not college credit, then at least they're eliminating courses that they would have to prerequisites that they'd have to take to move on. And with the cost of college, I think it's a positive thing.
And Mr. Neville, don't forget those students all are taking the exam as well from the board's
Everybody takes
generosity.
the exam
They all
now,
take,
right?
I mean that was not the case just 3 years ago,
I know.
4 years ago. Our percentage of kids taking the exam is one of the tops in the state now because of that financial commitment by the board. So taking the course is one thing, but our students that are now taking the exam and the number of students passing the exam, I think that's where the real success is. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I agree. Ashley, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Did we discuss the Latin class?
Oh, no, I didn't. Thank you.
Okay. So we're also, it's also been proposed that Latin is going to come back to the high school, fortunately, at basically a neutral cost, based on the teacher certifications who are interested in teaching that subject. And one thing that I found was astounding is all of these different classes, students were polled about pretty much every single one of them, and the interest in all of them was incredibly high, which is exactly what we want to hear. We don't want to just throw a class out there for the sake of putting an elective or what have you out there. These are courses that are in demand, and I was really excited to see that. I think she said like 60-something students were interested in pursuing Latin if it had come back to the high school. So it was really great to know that we could offer that with a very neutral cost, and that we're satisfying a really real need for what our students are asking for. So that was really nice to see throughout all of these courses, especially, again, the personal finance course. I think a lot of kids, they say, we know about parallelograms, but do we know how to do our taxes? No. But these are things that now they'll have the opportunity to learn: taxes, real estate, other aspects of personal finance, and all these courses are great and very valuable. So it was an excellent meeting, I would say.
I think the folks there are really taking it very, very seriously, and our push to get them to challenge kids. And we've been doing that over the past 4 or 5 or 6 years, and they're providing that challenge to the kids, and not just offering the courses, but I think actually recruiting kids and getting them to challenge themselves and getting them to take the test. And I think through the board's persistence, and we made that a budget item that we wanted to pay for that, because that was hurt. Now why are we offering the course if a kid isn't taking the test? Okay, I think the teachers didn't like that part of it either. So I think overall it's a real plus. But I'd like us to keep getting some kinds of stats on this stuff, so that I think it's good for the public to hear this. Okay, because you hear sometimes that we're not offering challenging courses. We are offering very challenging courses, and I think we need to hear from the kids as we go along too. But we would be asking for Latin, okay? I know the reason we got rid of it, because it's a very, very hard it's not a certification that's around. Very, very few places offer it, and to have somebody on staff that can do it, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so it says a lot about the dedication of the staff as well to continue pursuing those certifications so that they
kudos
can
for us,
offer,
please. Okay.
these things. And
Thank you.
and again, I guess just to wrap up my last comment, as you were saying about, well, these are some of the things we offer. We offer great challenges, and I kind of want to reiterate how much the program through Asnuntuck also speaks to me about offering fantastic opportunities for students who are technically inclined. Just the fact that they can shave over an entire year off of their degrees and certifications at Asnuntuck through these technological programs is absolutely stunning. I know we are partnering with other organizations, businesses in the community who are often taking on these students as apprentices right out of school, which is also saving them from, having the burden of those tuitions and, things of that nature that could be really daunting for students who are otherwise extremely promising. So just to point out, we really are trying to do everything for every student who has any sort of inclination, whether AP US History is their thing, or maybe, something a little more technological, robotics and programming is their thing. We're really broadening, and I think that's important.
I think even the CNC course, where these kids go in there and take it out, and they can walk out of there and get $50,000 after a year or two, that's incredible. Just a high school education and a certified course, unbelievable. And what opportunities for kids? Because not everybody's going to go to college, but it's certainly to start off at that. I wish I started off at that.
And it's nice to know we're supporting everyone's desire. College, no college; trade, no trade. We're working on it all. So.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for the great work you guys do. Thank you to Ms. Middleton and the staff for all they do on that too. So
absolutely,
and all the new AP courses. So 12B, Finance Committee, Budget Committee.
Well,
Ms. Riley.
The last meeting we had was the day before our last Board of Ed meeting, so I gave the approval of accounts and payroll. The next meeting is February 12th.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. Mr. Renier, Policy Committee.
Next meeting, February 6th.
Thank you, Ms. Renier. Mr. Renier. Leadership Committee, we're going to try to meet next week, if we can narrow a date down. Joint Facilities, we met last Thursday.
And we're meeting again this
And we have another meeting this Thursday. We're going ahead with the facilities. We're going ahead with JFK, and we're putting all our eggs in our basket and trying to get just one change to our committee. Mr. Renier is going to step down, and Ms. Riley is going to take his position. So if you want to note that, Kathy, and pass that on to Mr. Renier is stepping down, and Ms. Riley is taking
Joint Facilities.
For Joint Facilities. If you want to pass that on to your counterpart on the town side, it would be greatly appreciated. And that's about it we have for there. And then we have the High School Building Committee meeting. We had also 2 Thursdays ago. And
on the 11th.
Yeah.
You went and I didn't.
Yes, and it's just going over some final, the contractor was there. We're just getting some final bills in from some suppliers. The stoplight is in the design phase. there's an issue with the state, and they're going to have a public hearing on removing the stoplight at the corner of North Maple and Moody Road, and that removal is going to pay for the stoplight at the high school, is what we've been being told. So we do not need a public hearing for this stoplight, but there will be a public hearing on removing the one over there. So, and just stay tuned. We don't know when that's.
Is that because it's going to be closed?
No, what it was there was funding to replace the stoplight over there, and they're going to take that funding and put our stoplight in here, is what we're being told.
They're not removing that light at Furby.
No, that's what
they are removing it.
They're removing it, putting a four-way stop there, because of, and they're saying because the Furby was closed, so it's not needed over there. But there will be a public hearing, so let's just leave it at that. And
stay in your lane.
I do have some opinions to voice on that, and I'll voice them at the public hearing. So.
That's a tough decision. That's a tough intersection. I don't know.
That's where we live.
That's the state for you. Let's spend money to remove something, and not just leave it there and not costing you anything. But again, no comment. So stay tuned. There will be a public hearing on that. Any other committees? I don't believe so. So 13, approval of the regular meeting minutes of January 8th. January 9th, 2018. Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Riley, seconded by Mr. Ryder. Any discussion? Show of hands, all in favor? We have 6 in favor. Number 14, do we have any approvals?
We don't have any this time.
Number 15, do we have any correspondence? None at this time. Number 16, do we have a need for executive session?
We do not.
We do not. Okay, so... Wait a minute, I didn't say 17 yet. Will you slow down? Number 17, a motion to adjourn by Mr. Renier, seconded by Mr. Neville. Any discussion? Show of hands, all in favor? We are adjourned. Good night, and thank you.